call the meeting to order. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, reading and confirmation of the minutes. Wait, I should go on the right one. Give me 1 second here. Council planning. Here we go. Reading and confirmation of the Council Planning Committee meeting, that the minutes of the Council Planning Committee meeting held on September 3rd, 2024 be approved. By Councillor Brown, second by Councillor Wright Miller. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I have some opening remarks. The public meeting is being heard by the Council Planning Committee, and public notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The citizen appointees joining are Mr. Paul Jennings and Ms. Sarita Van Dyke. They may ask questions and participate in the discussion to assist in recommendations to City Council, but may not make motions or vote in connection with the public meeting. An important update: as per Bill 185, the right to appeal a planning decision is now restricted further. Appeals are limited to the applicant, the minister, approval authorities, public bodies, and specified persons who have made oral and written submissions prior to the adoption of the official plan amendment or zoning bylaw amendment. Specified persons are defined in the Planning Act and are made up of a limited list of entities, mainly consisting of impacted utility providers or telecommunication infrastructure providers. Therefore, it's crucial for those directly affected to make their submissions known during this public meeting. The Engineering Development Services Department will consider comments received at this public meeting, as well as written comments, in analyzing the applications that are before the public meeting tonight. For further information on how to provide comments to the city regarding an application from this public meeting, please email planning@belleville.ca. A recommendation report will be brought forward upon receipt of all agency and public comments in the future. Any persons wishing to be advised of the Council Planning Committee's recommendations regarding today's applications are requested to leave their name and address on the appropriate notification sheet on the clipboard beside the podium. And with that, we'll move into public meeting. 5.1, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 2024-100, Town Center Place, City of Belleville. Owner is 2777302 Ontario Incorporated. Applicant agent is RFA Planning Consultant Incorporated, and the file number is PLZBA2024131. If I could get staff to present the application, please.
Thank you, Chair Carr. This zoning application is proposed to facilitate a 93 unit subdivision in a mixed-use development. The subject land is currently zoned as Development Control Zone, and this application proposes to rezone that to a residential R2 zone, a residential R2-20 zone, and a new residential Type 2 zone with special provisions, as well as an open space zone and a neighborhood commercial C1 zone. This application would facilitate, as I mentioned, 93 residential units, including 4 commercial units. A variety of residential dwellings are proposed, including townhouses, back-to-back townhouses, 2-unit semi-detached dwellings, a low-rise multi-unit dwelling, as well as units above the ground floor commercial units. Special provisions are proposed for the 2-unit semi-detached dwellings to permit accessory dwelling units, 2 in each of those. So each property would have 4 units in total, including special provisions include the maximum number of driveways, reducing the minimum required driveway width from 3 meters to 2.85 meters, and increasing the maximum total width from 9 to 11.4 meters. The open space zone is proposed for a trail connection over an existing easement abutting a stormwater management facility and connecting the subdivision to the Settlers Ridge East subdivision. Corresponding draft plan of subdivision is also under review by staff. At this time, staff have received correspondence from 2 members of the public with questions regarding this application. In addition, staff want to note that there was a small error in the report in the chart on, I believe it's page 2 under section 3. Indicates that the lands to the south are designated as commercial land and that they're vacant. This land is actually designated, as residential. This land is actually designated commercial, not residential, but it's currently used as a stormwater management pond, and there's no proposed changes there. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak on the application? You could please state your name and activate the microphone. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Ruth Ferguson Althouse. I'm the president of RFA Planning Consultant, and I have a presentation on behalf of the management of the consultant team and the owners for this project, known as Town Center Place. Thank you. I'd like to introduce attending here this evening Brad Newbat from Frontier Homes and Graham Cobb from Cobblestone Homes. They're the local builders that will be building out the subdivision. And as well, you recognize probably Adrian Bax is here as project manager with Adam Wilson from WSE Engineering. So we've been working on this project with the consultant team for a considerable amount of time to determine the appropriate mix of housing for the site. And we've worked very closely with the planning staff as we've gone through the changes from the new zoning bylaw, which happened to hit this project as we were just getting started. So it's been a process. Just to introduce the site, it's 2.63 hectares in area. It's within the Belleville Urban Serviced Area, and it will be accessed from an extension of Raycroft Drive and to the west side of Town Center Drive. To the south, as Tom mentioned, is a stormwater management pond. To the north is Settlers Ridge East, Phase 3 subdivision, and it was just finally approved at the very beginning of September. So this committee dealt with that application over the summer. To the west is another stormwater management pond and residential uses within the Settlers Ridge East Phase 2 subdivision, and immediately abutting the subject lands in Phase 2 is a 5-meter wide drainage easement. And to the east, of course, are highway commercial uses. So it's very much a transitional site between the commercial and the residential that's part of Settlers Ridge. As mentioned, we started this project almost a year ago, more than a year ago, September of 2023. We filed the applications in July, and the applications are currently being reviewed by municipal staff and government agencies. And the public meeting tonight here is to deal with the rezoning application. There's also an application for subdivision approval. We filed a planning justification report, and then there were some minor amendments. So there's an addendum that's part of your agenda package. And there was a functional servicing report, traffic report, and stormwater management report. And these were done as well for Settlers Ridge East. So the planning and engineering for Settlers Ridge East and Town Center Place has been done in concert, and those reports were filed for both applications. Just take a little bit of time to describe the nature of the plan of subdivision application, referring to the colored drawing. Starting with the two-story townhouse units, which are shown in the orange color. There are 9 two-story townhouse units in total that are proposed on the internal road that's going to be known as Red Fox Lane. Across the street from that, along the west side, abutting the Settlers Ridge Phase 2 in the drainage easement, there are bungalow townhouses that are proposed, and there are 12 units of those, and they're in the pale yellow color. Then further to the south, adjacent to the stormwater pond, there's a low-rise multi-unit dwelling that is 2 stories. It has 12 apartment units, so that's in the brown tone. Between the bungalow towns and a small apartment dwelling, there is a walkway and easement that will connect to the stormwater pond and the trails to the west. And then along the southern perimeter, again adjacent to the stormwater pond, shown in the pink color, are semi-detached dwelling units that will have accessory dwelling units within each. So there are 20 units within the 5 blocks for the semi-detached in the pink. Then moving up across the street from that area of the fourplex semi-detached units, there are back-to-back townhouse units in the blue color, and they are in 1 block that are proposed, and there are 24 units overall that are proposed. Further to the north, and again on the extension of Raycroft Drive at the corner of Town Center Drive, is a mixed-use building that will have commercial at grade, and there will be 16 apartments over 2 floors, 8 per floor, in that block that's shown in the darker blue. As you can appreciate, and from the description of the project, there's a wide range of building topologies that are proposed, and they're both freehold units as well as rental units that are proposed, and I would suggest that the majority, or certainly more than half of the units, will be rental units, and in an area of the municipality that doesn't have a lot of rental units offered on the market. There will be sidewalks and walkways established across the northern perimeter. This was part of the Settlers Bridge East project. There is a multi-use path along the south side of Raycroft Drive, and I've mentioned that there's going to be a trail connection to the stormwater pond to the west. I'm now going to just go through each land use building topology and describe how the proposal meets the zoning requirements of the City of Belleville zoning bylaw. And the first is the two-story townhouse units. What we have on our concept plan and enlarged on the slides that follow are the provisions of the zoning bylaw that are being applied for, and how the particular building mix actually conforms or complies with those zoning provisions, and how they meet and satisfy all of the Belleville zoning bylaw provisions for the most part, with some very minor exceptions. So these are the two-story townhouse that I mentioned previously that are in the gold tone. They access onto Red Fox Lane, and there will be fencing provided adjacent to the multi-use building in the rear yards. They actually have a greater rear yard setback than required by the bylaw of almost a little bit over 10.3 meters versus 7.5 meters that's set out in the zoning bylaw. And there's a zone provision or category in the Belleville zoning bylaw called R2-20 zone that has slightly narrower frontage. So this is a zone that does exist and has applied to other projects in the city. And this is the zone category that's being applied to the two-story townhouses. Turning to the bungalow townhouses, they are also going to be in an R2 zone with no special provisions. There are 12 in total, and they have access from Red Fox Lane, and they will abut Settlers Ridge East. Again, there is the storm pond as well as the easement that actually abuts those blocks in the rear yard, and they meet all of the provisions of the R2 zone. Further south and adjoining the bungalow towns is the low-rise multi-unit dwelling, and there will be 12 units in a low-profile two-story multi-unit dwelling. It's located at the corner of the subdivision, abutting the two stormwater ponds and the walkway to the north. There will be amenity space provided in the apartment with the balconies and some communal outdoor amenity areas. This is required in the R2 zone provisions. There will also be central parking that's shown on the east side of the building, and there will be privacy fencing adjoining to that, and the parking will meet the zone standards for the R2 zone and all other provisions. This project would be subject to site plan control. Turning now to the two-unit semi-detached dwellings that have the accessory dwelling units. As I mentioned, we work very closely with the builders and with the city staff to ensure that we have a type of housing unit that is acceptable and meets almost all of the requirements of the R2 zone. And the blocks themselves would be rental units, and parking would be provided in an attached garage for each unit, as well as an abutting driveway in front of the garage. Because it is a new housing product, the city staff have wanted to work very closely with us to ensure that we meet all of the provisions of the bylaw, and save and except for some very minor ones related to driveways and parking. And I would submit to you, they are fairly minor provisions. They increase the number of driveways so that each unit has a driveway for it in front of its garage, and there's a slight reduction in the width of the driveway, and the combined width overall is slightly increased. The back-to-back townhouses, there would be 24 in total that would be situated just to the north of the semi-detached units, and they would have access as well through to Town Center Drive. There would be internal parking provided for all of these units, and as opposed to having parking directly in front of each entrance. So that the areas surrounding the units would be used for amenity space, and there would also be privacy fencing provided to the north adjacent to the mixed-use building. These back-to-back townhomes would meet all of the provisions of the R2 zone. There are some potential variances that may be processed at the time of site plan approval, and they're noted here with an asterisk on the chart. The mixed-use building is intended to provide for commercial services to the neighborhood, both at Town Center Place as well as the surrounding subdivisions in Settlers Ridge. And it meets all of the provisions of the C1 zone as summarized here on the table on this slide. There would be 8 residential units at on each grade, each level, the second and third floors, for a total of 16. And the intention is that the parking along Raycroft Drive would be for the commercial uses, with the residential parking to the rear. And again, there would be privacy fencing provided, with amenity space as well for the residential apartments. As referenced at the very beginning, the servicing and traffic were reviewed were submitted as part of the Settlers Ridge East. We had Azura engineers for the traffic study and Jewel for the servicing and the stormwater, and they've determined that there's sufficient servicing for the site, as well as there were no requirements for improvements to the traffic network in the area. And as well, with respect to stormwater management, as for Settlers Ridge East, it's within the Norbel Master Drainage Plan area, and these ponds that already exist they will provide for the quantity control for the subdivisions, and the quality control will be provided through oil grit separator units. Our planning report addressed the provincial policy statement, which is just, of course, there's a new provincial policy statement, but I would submit it would satisfy that as well. We are required to look at the 2020 policy statement because that was the time of the submission and complete determination of a complete application. But it is within the urban serviced area where growth and development shall be focused, and it has full municipal services, and it's designated residential, and there's a variety of housing densities and building topologies that should be provided. And it's been designed with a very compact form with a range of housing affordability and tenure options. With respect to the official plan, which is shown here on this slide, the lands are designated residential. You can see with the blue box, those are the subject lands. As well, they're within the Canifton planning area. And our planning report provides a very detailed overview of the official plan policies and how this subdivision and rezoning conform to those policies. The density would be categorized as medium density residential, and therefore in the official plan there are criteria that must be followed to ensure that it's an appropriate location for medium density, and our submission is that it does satisfy all of those criteria for medium density land uses within the Belleville official plan policies, and it does in fact conform to all of those policies. And finally, that neighborhood commercial uses are also permitted and encouraged within the residential land use designation. Turning to the zoning, this slide, hopefully you can see that it is a bit hard perhaps to read, but predominantly the zone types will be R2 with some special provisions related to the semi-detached uses, and then there's the neighborhood commercial zone for the mixed-use building on the corner. And I've already summarized the semi-detached 2-unit dwellings, but essentially that is to restrict the ability to have any more than the 2 accessory dwelling units, and all of the other provisions relate to driveways. And the other housing proposals all meet the R2 zone categories. So that concludes the presentation, and we've worked very closely again with staff to ensure that we've satisfied the new zoning bylaw to the extent that we possibly can, and ensure that there's a comfort level with respect to how the housing units are laid out, and the arrangement and density considerations within the subdivision. And finally, I just wanted to conclude that it will facilitate construction of additional housing for these builders and a range of housing affordability and forms of tenure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from committee members? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. One of your last words was affordability. Any ballpark figure on what these homes might come in as far as the cost?
Thank you. Yes, we did inquire with the builders as to what they expected for the prices for the townhouse units, and they would range from $580,000 to $615,000.
Any other questions from committee members? Councillor Millett.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Ms. Ferguson-Allhouse. Green space in this area. Is there parkland in lieu, or are we looking at nearby green spaces? Just refresh my memory.
Yes, that's a good question. I didn't really touch on it. Cash in lieu for this particular subdivision is what we received in our pre-consultation comments. There is a park that's being provided to the north in phase 3 of Settlers Ridge, and you'll recall we actually enlarged that park through the input from the committee and from the Parks Director. We are also within proximity to Bird Park and all the trails around the stormwater system, so you know, there is the larger community park in that area, but there's also going to be a smaller park at.
Thank you.
Ms. Van Dyke.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I actually have a few questions. The first one is, I know we're rezoning is what the request is, DC and R2 zoning. How long has it been zoned as such, and is there a reason?
Through Councillor Carr, to Ms. Van Dyke. So the actual zoning on it right now has only been in place since March when the new zoning bylaw came into effect. Prior to that, it was under zoning bylaw 3014. I'd have to double check what that was exactly. My assumption is that it was also some form of a development control zone at that time as well. Simply because the lands at the time, I think when the original bylaw was put in place, were not ready to be developed, either for servicing or there could be a variety of reasons. Now that servicing is there, now we can turn to the official plan, which is designated as residential.
Perfect, thank you. Can you remind me what the parking capacity is for the 93 units?
Under the zoning bylaw, we exceed the parking requirements under the zoning bylaw for the 93 units, so it's all on a case-by-case basis. So each block has been evaluated, and within each chart that I summarized, it provides an overview of the parking and, you know, for example, the townhouse units all have garages, plus they have driveways, for example, and same with respect to the semi-detached units. For the apartments, there's at least one parking space per unit. And I would, for the mixed-use building, I think we far exceed what's in the bylaw as requirements for parking, for commercial and for residential.
Perfect. The back-to-back units,
Yes?
and sorry if I missed that, where's the parking for that?
Okay,
Is that's in the block, correct?
It is, yes. It's all in behind, so the units themselves face, it's on a, I don't know if we can call up this screen again, just to illustrate that. It's on, yes, thank you. It's probably a little bit hard to read. I can appreciate your question, because the blue back-to-back units, the light blue, the parking is all in behind there with the driveway that goes out into Red Fox Lane as well as to the Town Center Drive. And so all of those units have walkways that lead to surface parking, and all that parking is tucked in behind. The units themselves all face the south side of Red Fox Lane as well as the side yards, and the parking is all in behind to the north. So there is a sort of, maybe hard to see, but there's a darker heavy black line, and that's the division of that block for the back-to-backs, and then you get into the mixed-use block and the parking to the north of that.
Okay, so if I'm seeing this correctly, the front, so they're back-to-back units. The front unit, so opposite the parking, so are the front units, do they have to exit out their front and walk to the back via the
That's
walkway?
correct. That's correct.
And these are two-story back-to-back townhouses?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So they have sidewalks, they're in the groupings of the 8 units, and they've been divided with sidewalks connecting back to the parking.
Okay.
So the ones that face out onto Red Fox Lane, that's correct, they have a little bit further to walk than the ones that face to the north.
Okay. I'm all about housing, I just want to say, and I think that it's fabulous, and multi-use is good, very good. Love to see housing. I would, if there was any way of because these townhouses will be family units, and I'm just thinking of a family that has small children, winter, anything, that it wouldn't necessarily be very practical. So if there was any way of working that into the plans, I know the plans are set, but if there was any changes, that's the only suggestion I have. That's it.
Any other questions from committee members? No? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else wishing to speak on the application? If you'd like to come forward, activate the microphone and state your name, and the floor is yours. If I can just get you to activate the microphone, just press the button there. There you go.
My name's Robert Allenson, live up the road from where this will be proposed. Got some concerns about traffic. Now, I know they said a traffic plan was in place between this development and the one that's already approved across the road. I believe that's like almost 200, it'd be 200 units, housing units. So most units have 2 cars per place, so you're looking at 400 cars. That section going through there right now is a construction road, correct? So there isn't a lot of movement of vehicles through there. I think a lot of people rather go around than anything. But even so, when you go up to Highway 62 there and trying to get out and turn either way on like at 8 o'clock in the morning or at 4 at night, the busy times, it's a chore to get out there. I'm just wondering, with this added amount of housing, how are you going to get out? Like, what was the traffic plan? To just go out to 62, or was there some other plan in place?
Yeah, I'll
or-
get you an answer on that, and to just piggyback on that question, what was MTO's comments with regards to accessing that road?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the resident. But first I'll answer your question, Councillor. MTO was circulated, but they deemed it outside of their circulation area, so they had no comments. However, this traffic report was completed by a RAC-certified traffic consultant, which would be a requirement from MTO if they deemed it necessary. So to answer your question, both Settlers Ridge Phase 3 and Town Center Place were analyzed, as well as the subdivisions to the west, Settlers 1, 2, etc. Essentially, there's multiple ways to egress and ingress from those subdivisions, whether you go through Hampton Ridge or out to 62 or even out to Sydney Street. So it was determined through the Azurza that the additional traffic that will be generated from this build-out would be marginal increased from what the background traffic is today, from a level of service and delay point of view. So yeah, it was deemed acceptable. They have it generating about 112 new trips in the morning and 137 new trips in the afternoon.
If you could just activate your microphone again. It's okay.
That sounds a little light, to be honest. Like, just about every household has 2 cars, minimum 1. Even so, there's, an extra 200 cars. Plus, they haven't finished building all in where we are now. And that it just seems like there's going to be if there isn't a lot of traffic going out onto Highway 62, if people find that too much, then it's going to be a lot of traffic going back the other way, opposite way, all the way through the subdivision. So, I don't know, I just got some concerns about Highway 62. Hopefully that's the route that most people go from that end of the subdivision and that, but you go out there now, and the people from the car dealerships and that, they're waiting to get out there, and everybody's going through there at a high rate of speed, as you can appreciate. Down 62, it's 70 or 80, so it's probably close to 100 they're going, so it just sounds like a lot of traffic going out that bottom end to me, and it's a problem down the road, but anyways, that's my concern about it.
Okay.
I had another ask, which I guess was answered. There is an access point from here out to the lane to get back into the roundabout, the walk around the drainage pond?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Okay, that's all I got. I
Okay.
just have some serious concerns about the traffic there, that's all.
No problem. Before you run away, any questions from committee members? Ms. Van Dyke?
Can you just explain, when you say it's an issue right now, how long does it take? What are you waiting for other cars to get out of their driveway? Can you just describe that a little bit more?
Oh, you mean to get down to 62?
Correct.
To drive out? Well, right now, it's not really much of an issue because it's a construction road, right? It's very rough, and like I used to go down it, but it's so rough now, I just go around through the subdivision. So once that gets opened and we have a permanent paved driveway there, there's gonna be a lot more residents that use it from, that east side of the subdivision going out there. They're not using it probably now because, they don't wanna take their vehicles through there and the wear and tear that's on the vehicles going through there kind of thing, so. I guess you don't know until all that road's done how much traffic's gonna be through there, but I imagine it's gonna be substantial anyways, so. Okay,
Okay, all right, thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the application? Yeah, come forward, state your name, and you have the floor.
Hi, my name's Ashley Cooper. I also live on Raycroft, just to the west of this proposed development. I'm just concerned about the commercial buildings and how they will be utilised, and the hours that they're going to operate, and possible noise to the environment that they might create. So I'd like a few answers on that if possible.
Okay. Up to staff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. To Mr. Cooper, so because the lands are within the residential land use category, they are limited in what types of commercial development can go in there and what staff would support. What we look for in residential lands is to have some commercial, and that's limited typically to neighborhood commercial uses. That could be a variety of things. That could be a convenience store, it could be a small office, it could be a nail salon, it could be a local gym, farm produce outlet, a variety of the very small scale uses. How we implement that is through our C1 neighborhood commercial zone, and that's what the applicants have proposed here. That zone itself limits the size and scale of how big those commercial uses can be. So they're limited just by that respect, and then also by the types of uses. So we try to keep those to uses that we actually deem as appropriate for within the residential area. And so, in generally speaking, ideally they have minimal impact, and they are things that just service that local area. They shouldn't be ideally drawing in large large amounts of traffic from the highway. They should be more servicing the Settlers Ridge East and the subdivision. In terms of operational hours, we really don't zone for that. Obviously there's some limitations in, what types of uses they can have. For example, like a nightclub or a bar, for instance, is not a permitted use in that zone. So you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about that. I'm just looking through the list of uses that are permitted there. Perhaps like it does allow for a restaurant, for example, but again, that's limited in size and scale of what that could be. So it, I would say it's unlikely that that's going to be up late to the point that it would have an impact. It's also located at the far north east corner, directly abutting the bowling alley there. Yep.
I mean, there'd be no chance of anything like a cannabis shop opening up there that might attract the wrong undesirable type of people.
Unfortunately, you'd have to probably take that up with your provincial MPP, because we have essentially no control over where cannabis retail stores can be located. We're not allowed to zone for them, whether for or against.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Okay, any questions from committee members? No? Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on the application? I'll ask a second time. And a third time. You could just state your name, yeah. Always count to 3.
Okay. My name is Pamela Cooper. I live on Raycroft. And with the commercial units, you're saying there's 4 going in, yes? And then you're having living above them? Yeah. So you have people coming to shop there, you have people living there. So what's going to happen with all, with all these cars?
Refer that to staff.
Thank you, Chair Carr. No, great question. So the zoning bylaw provides requirements for parking for commercial uses and residential uses. In situations where you have a mixed-use zone, such as our C1 zone that allows for that, they have to accommodate parking for both. So if we don't have the plan up right now, but on the plan it actually shows where there's the front section that's actually towards the Raycroft Road extension. That's the commercial parking area. And then behind the building, those are the spots where the residential parking stalls are planned for. So both are accounted for. They're actually exceeding the parking just slightly. Yeah, I believe the residential requires 16. They have 19 on site. They meet all the accessible parking stalls as well.
So I've got to press the button?
No,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
on.
So the parking close to the road, Raycroft, is for people going there to shop or whatever, yeah?
That's
whatever.
correct. Yep.
And then the ones at the back, they're for the people who live there, yes?
Yes, I believe there's some commercial that wraps around, but yes, that is correct.
So what about the people who work there?
Again, the zoning bylaw accounts for that. So when we look at parking requirements, we're accounting for the intended users as well as those who work there. So that commercial parking, that would be also accommodated within that the percentage that we require.
Oh, I still think it's going to be a lot of cars.
It may be. We do work for ways to alleviate that. The new zoning bylaw, for example, requires bicycle parking. So we do try to find alternative modes of transportation.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, any questions?
Any questions?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the application? I'll go beyond 3. If not, okay, thank you very much. Just 1 second here. Okay, I have resolution of the Town Center Place zoning bylaw amendment application number PLZBA 2024-0131 be referred to the regular plan advisory committee meeting for consideration. Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Wright Miller. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 5.2 notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 2024-100, 1530 and 1540 Blessington Road, City of Belleville. Owner is Matthew McDougall, agent is Wade Little. File numbers PLZBA 2024-0264. If staff could present the application, please.
Thank you, Chair. The subject property, located on the south side of Blessington Road and northeast of the intersection of Brennan Road and Blessington Road, currently features a single detached dwelling with several accessory buildings. On July 18, 2024, 2 consent applications were approved by the Committee of Adjustment, each allowing for the severance of 1 lot from the subject land to facilitate a single detached dwelling on each new lot. As condition of both consents, the application proposes to rezone the severed parcels from rural zone to rural residential zone. No rezoning no rezone is proposed for the retained parcel. At this time, staff have received 1 correspondence from the public regarding the consent application. The inquirer stated that they did not receive notification of the consent applications. However, staff have confirmed that notification was mailed out and a sign was placed in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. No further correspondence was received for this application. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anyone wishing to speak on the application? It's up to you. Okay, okay. Any questions from committee members? Sorry, if you could just activate the microphone and state your name for the record since you've...
Yeah, I'm Wade Little. I'm the applicant on the application.
Any questions from committee members? No? Thank you. Okay, I have a resolution that the McDougall zoning bylaw amendment application number PLZBA 2024-0264 be referred to the regular planning advisory committee meeting for consideration. Moved by Councillor Brown, second by Councillor Wright Miller. All in favor? That's carried. Can I get a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting? Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Wright Miller. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to the planning advisory committee. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof. Seeing none, reading confirmation of minutes, resolution of the minutes of the planning advisory committee meeting held on September 3rd, 2024 be approved. Moved by Councillor Wright Miller, second by Mr. Jennings. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. No deputations. Correspondence, resolution of the planning advisory committee received the correspondence for information. Ms. Van Dyke, Councillor Brown, all in favor? That's carried. Referrals from the public meeting. 6.1, notice of complete application, introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 2024-100, Town Center Place, City of Belleville. Owner is 2777302 Ontario Incorporated. Applicant agent is RFA Planning Consultants Incorporated. File number is PLZBA 2024-0131. Resolution reads at report number APS-2024-48. Dated October 7th, 2024, regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment to zoning bylaw 2024-100 for Town Center Place, City of Belleville, will be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering Development Services Department. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Mr. Jennings. Any questions or comments? I have one for staff. With regards to some of the rental units, and I'm posing this question based on the experiences we have with other developments. Typically, someone will buy a unit, rent it, and then oversubscribe the rental where we have more cars than space. Is there a way in which there can be a covenant placed on the unit that describes the parking that's there, so that in the event the unit is built, sold by the builder, purchased by someone to then turn around and rent it, that it's very clear and articulate what the parking requirements are there? And I pose that question because Councillor Brown and I actually had a member of the public who purchased a home in one of the new subdivisions and then kindly, I guess for lack of a better word, chewed us out for approving a single family dwelling at that location with a driveway that didn't have acceptable parking for the vast number of tenants he decided to rent the unit to. So how do we put that in place so that down the road beyond this application, and this is to consider for others too, we aren't dealing with the legacy issue of the, and I know what the zoning says about the parking, but how do we make sure that prospective owners, prospective buyers, and prospective tenants understand very clearly what the parking is there? And I also see where we could run into issue on Raycroft with a commercial business as well, where if it's busy business, it may spill over, and then our parking services are going to have to be engaged. So how do we solve this problem before it gets out of hand later?
Okay, so I'll answer that, because it's very.
I
So
saw you doing
in our
meeting
plan
mind
of,
there.
in our plan of subdivision, so
That was a delegate up, I believe.
Greg will include warning clauses in the plan of subdivision, but ultimately, it'll come down to parking enforcement. I think this week we did just have our new manager of bylaw, or parking and bylaw and property and everything else start, so hopefully she'll be able to coordinate sort of an overall approach to sort of some of the parking issues that we've received, where perhaps people are kind of putting too many people into these homes but don't have the facilities for cars.
Okay, and that's good. As long as there's like a warning in the documentation, at least it will make it much easier. I know when we get calls and referred over to parking services, that they then can then point to something at the approval stage that was there. So, okay, great. Thank you. Councillor Brown.
I apologize. I had the question and lost it and got it back again when you asked yours. In the package that's available today, it talks with some specificity about the 2-unit semi-detached dwellings with ADUs. Although a townhouse, you could have an ADU, or technically you wouldn't want to do it in an apartment per se, but there's opportunity. So I guess my question is, why did we have that level of specificity on the semis and not just generally that ADUs could occur?
Through Chair Carr, that's a great question. So as you're aware, staff are still under the process of reviewing potential 4-unit options. At this time, when we were going through the housekeeping amendment a few months ago, we added 2-unit semi in to facilitate a number of things. One, just semis that were existing on a single lot, whereas the bylaw typically requires a semi to be split by a property line. When we went through that process, we didn't want to dive in too deep right away, as we were still going through this review process through our Strategic Growth and Sustainability Division. So we didn't allow for ADUs within 2-unit semis, even though they are allowed within 1 units. And maybe that's something that eventually we permit as of right, once a bit more research has been done into these built forms. But as of right now, we don't have those policies. So when this application came forward, what they wanted to do was a 2-unit semi, which for all intents and purposes is exactly that and meets the definition, but plus accessory dwelling units. Why we're limiting it is because, again, we're still reviewing that built form. 2 made sense to limit it for this one because that's what they're proposing. They didn't have intent to bump it up. You know, it is a tricky situation. If there was a property line down the middle, you know, the changes to the Planning Act would require that, you know, a 1-unit semi can have 2 ADUs, and on the same footprint, you could essentially have 6 units. Because it's all on one property, that's where things got a little more complicated. We didn't want a situation where we were permitting, you know, 4 accessory dwelling units on one property. So again, I think this one, it's almost an interim step. This is a situation where we can allow for a built form that technically you could achieve through a 1-unit semi split with a property line. However, because they are putting it all on the single property, that's where we had to create the special provisions for it. So it is a very complicated one. I think the proponents alluded that we worked very closely for a while, and it was back and forth on this a lot.
So if I may, so the semi is being built on a single property. Are there covenants in terms of which owner owns what?
So to answer your first question, yes, they are. The 2-unit semi is all on one property, so it would be a single ownership. So it would be a single owner owning 2 main units that would constitute the 2-unit semi, and then 2 accessory dwelling units would be on either side, So essentially, it'd be 4 units on one property with one owner.
So again, I just want to clarify, it's one owner for both sides of the semi-detached?
Correct. Yeah, it's all one property.
That's, okay, so that's quite different than what I would interpret as a semi, so. I'm not sure that was well understood, so thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? Ms. Van Dyke?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we're hearing a lot about the concerns for parking, for the congestion. This question is for staff. Are there any plans or chats or talks whatsoever about walkways into the city, where this is the city of Belleville, walkways, bike paths? I know busing is a huge issue. Eventually, we're going to have to go there because they need to get to town, and it's cheaper to take the bus. But bike paths, our city is very low in bike paths in comparison to other cities.
We are going to be updating our transportation master plan. So there'll be a chance to sort of look at that in advance of 401 bridges being redone, which tomorrow. No, but I know that council has put forward a budget item. I think Councillor Carr could explain, but to go under the 401, one of the bridges, but. Again, that would be subject to MTO approval, but that's something that TOS is looking at as well.
Sorry, going under the 401 bridge, like as a walkway?
Walkway, to get sort of around and under the.
It's at the Moira River. So where Riverside Park ends at the 401, and there's the bridges at the river, the 401 bridges. It goes under the 401 at the river.
Are you talking Canifton?
Yes.
Okay.
And then up the other side. So there's money for a detailed design through TOS, Transportation Operations, subject to MTO. MTO has said in the past they don't like that idea, but we can't wait around for their capital works related to overpass configuration, et cetera. So we're going to try this route. I know our newly minted MPP is a big proponent of active transportation, so I'm sure we'll gain his favor in terms of helping to push that along.
Okay. I would add to that an issue is the bridge just up front, North Front Street. That bridge, that anybody working north of that bridge, or even going to Walmart or anything, and that's a big grocery store that people in the community use, that it's not really accessible. And I've seen more recently, and especially newcomers that are used to different ways of how you walk on roads or sides of the road, that they're walking across the bridge. There's large groups, that there almost needs to be a rail there. But anyways, that, and also, and we talked about before too, Loyalist. And just as a member of as a community representative on this board, I have 3 sons. All 3 sons have worked on the other sides. There's no busing. So for example, I have one that works at a fast food restaurant. If we cannot give him a ride, he's taking a taxi. And that's a fast food restaurant. And so it's just really important because not everybody has access. So I'm just wondering, in these creations of big subdivisions and parking and whatnot, I think bike paths is something that, and yeah, I named a few.
I'll just touch on a couple. So we do have transit that operates over the 401 to the
Walmart,
to the Millennium Plaza. Correct. There. So that is accessible. The difficulty is both 37 and Highway 62 overpasses are Ontario government jurisdiction, MTO jurisdiction, so they're not the cities. They have made it very clear that those are not pedestrian friendly, and they don't intend to make them pedestrian friendly because there is a plan to expand the 401, which would include complete new overpasses. Even in the wintertime, they will not clear the shoulders for pedestrians because they do not want pedestrians on there because it isn't safe. The connectivity has been a primary factor for me for years, hence the reason why we've been looking at alternatives for active transportation under the 401 while we continue to wait for the province to deal with the interchanges, the 401 expansion, which council has seen the plans from MTO, very clear, very separated active transportation networks. So there won't be sharing it necessarily with the vehicles. It'll be very safe. It's in their 10-year capital plan, but perhaps maybe the premier is more focused on a tunnel through the city of Toronto right now. I'm not sure, but hopefully we can get to a point where the 401 doesn't become or isn't an ongoing impediment for connectivity in our city. It's something we talk about a lot at the council table, and we're trying alternatives for sure. But contact your MPP. Councillor Brown.
If I could just add to that, the Transit Master Plan was just approved this past year by council, and the issue of busing north of the 401 has been well discussed by council. It is not something that the residents would support. The actual statistics on the usage of the buses itself when we were running a pilot would not support the cost to run full-time transit up there. And so when the Transit Master Plan was approved, it has a caveat that if and when growth continues north of the 401, that we would relook at the transit to determine whether or not there's sufficient usage of it. So it's not a never, but I can suggest to you it's still a fair ways out because we are reaching the urban boundary.
Okay. Councillor Enright Miller.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question for staff and maybe a comment too. I'm really glad to see that the parking exceeded our zoning bylaw slightly. We all know, I don't think any of us are not aware that parking will be a problem in dense locations like this. Will any of the blocks or the commercial spots be registered as a freehold or land condo?
Through Chair Carr, the intent, I believe, is that the commercial will be a condo plan, as well as the back-to-back. We actually have the applicants' planners here. They might be able to provide a little more clarity on the actual final plans for the condo. I don't know, Ruth, do you have anything you could outline maybe?
Yes, through you to the chair. That's correct. We were going to register, actually submit the subdivision was originally submitted so that these would become condominiums, and it was determined that it might be more appropriate to do this at the site plan control stage. So we simplified the draft plan to just show the one block, but that is the intention. And that would also help control the parking in a way that was speaking to what Chairman Carr was referring to. Because in a condominium you can control the parking much more so than in just a freehold townhouse.
Thank you, Ruth. And that's why my question was asked, just because it gives us another level of control which we can implement at that stage. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? A resolution on the floor. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 6.2, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 2024-100, 1530, 1540 Blessing Road, City of Belleville. Owners Matthew McDougall, agent is Wayne Little. File number is PLZBA 2024-0264. Resolution is that report number APS-2024-49 dated October 7th, 2024 regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 2024-100, 1530, 1540 Blessing Road, City of Belleville be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering Development Services Department. Moved by Councillor Brown, second by Councillor Millette. Any questions or comments? See none, all in favor? That's carried. We have no reports. Information matters. Resolution of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment monitoring report dated October 7th, 2024 be received. Moved by Councillor Miller, second by Mr. Jennings. Any questions or comments on those? Just one for staff. We've got a couple that are like almost ancient, I guess, is the way to describe them. Waiting on either applicant, do we just leave them there and the clock continues to tick away?
So that's on the work plan for, to sort of come up with a standard procedure so we can keep those clean. Yes.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you. All in favor to receive that? It's carried, thank you. Anything for general business? Seeing none, I need a motion to adjourn. Councilor Wright Miller, Mr. Jennings, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you.